I first got involved in Christian apologetics before I ever knew what the word apologetics meant, actually. It seems like a bit of a technical term, but I grew up in a city called Leicester in the Midlands of England, and it was famous for a number of things, most recently for having a very good football team. But before that, it was the first city, apparently, in the UK to have an ethnic majority, which means that there were more people from a non-British background in the city. So it meant growing up, I had a lot of friends at school who were from different religious backgrounds. And although I had grown up in a Christian environment, I'd heard about Jesus as a child, a lot of the people around me had different religious beliefs. Some of them would call themselves atheists and so on. And in this particular school, we started what we called a Christian Union. It was a group for Christians to meet together, but there were only 3 people in the school who would have regarded themselves as, well, at least publicly, as Christian. And so we used to meet together, but it was a little bit boring being such a small group. So then we used to put on these public events called Guerrilla Christian, where we would invite anybody just to come and ask their questions about Christianity over a lunchtime. And I remember we organized the first one of these. It was in room 22. It was the room where we studied religion at school. And I didn't know whether anyone would come, but I arrived in the room and there were about 60 or 70 people crammed into this classroom. And it was mayhem. There were no teachers. People were throwing things across the room and smoking out of the back window. And then I introduced an older Christian friend who was going to answer the questions. And I'll never forget that lunchtime because all the kind of normal hostile questions came from these arrogant teenage boys. It was an all-boys school. But my friend would just respond to them clearly and succinctly, sometimes humorously. I remember sitting there thinking like, there are answers to these questions. I was used to hearing about Christianity in a church context, but hearing the Christian faith not only explained, but defended in a secular context of a school classroom in my lunch break was just a really eye-opening and revolutionary experience for me. And I remember thinking as probably about a 14-year-old boy, I couldn't do that. I couldn't answer those kind of questions on the spot. But then I also thought I'd love to be able to do that one day. I'd love to be able to hear the questions that people have and respond to them in that kind of environment. So actually, as a 14-year-old, I'd say that was the first encounter that I really had with what we might now call Christian apologetics, and really the motivation for me to want to know about my faith enough that I would be able to respond to the questions and the objections that people might have about it.